Mr. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Layton,
Present.
Commissioner Daly, Commissioner Hoover, Commissioner Fox, Commissioner Frederickson,
Present.
Commissioner Foradora, Commissioner Knick here. Did I miss anybody? Mitrick? Commissioner Mitrick here. All present.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting held September 25th, 2018?
So moved. Second.
We got a motion and a second. Mr. Secretary, will you please call for the vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 8-0.
First item to come before the Commission today is from the Bureau of Wildlife Management. It concerns adopted rulemaking to amend 58 PA Code, Sections 133.21 and 133.41. The Commission has a fiduciary duty to manage our wildlife and their habitat for present and future generations. With this trust comes tough decisions. Enhanced protection through listing of these species is the right decision for Pennsylvania's wildlife and the public we serve. Listing engages the Commission in decisions that help avoid, minimize, or mitigate impacts compounded by the primary causes of decline. The endangered/threatened classification recognizes the inherent value of each surviving member of the species. The Commission is proposing to amend Sections 133.21 and 133.41 to adjust the Commonwealth's threatened and endangered species list for the following species. Peregrine falcon. Upgrading from endangered to threatened reflects steady statewide population recovery as specified in the board-approved Peregrine falcon management plan. The recovery metrics for upgrading species status to threatened have been achieved. Piping plover, upgraded from extirpated to endangered, recognizes the return of a breeding bird to Pennsylvania and follows the regulatory process in Section 133.4. We are celebrating the return of a native bird species to our state after more than 60 years' absence, in which pairs have successfully nested at Presque Isle State Park in 2017 and 2018, with reasonable expectation that they will return in the future. Presque Isle is the only regular location in which this species occurs in Pennsylvania. Red knot. Red knot, subspecies rufa, was classified as federally threatened in 2014, with Pennsylvania listed in the historic migratory range. It was designated a species of greatest conservation need in the Pennsylvania Wildlife Action Plan because it is a rare migrant, found only at Presque Isle State Park and Conejohela Flats. Due to its federally protected status, and because the population is highly vulnerable to further declines, based on the Pennsylvania Game Commission and Pennsylvania Fish Commission in 2015, averting adverse impacts to the species during migration contributes to the range-wide conservation of this species. State listing follows Title 58 in response to federal listing in 133.4. Bats. All hibernating bat species are species of greatest conservation need in the Pennsylvania Wildlife Action Plan due to their catastrophic declines caused by white nose syndrome, also based on the Pennsylvania Game Commission, Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission in 2015. State listing provides the best tool to protect the remaining maternity sites and hibernacula, to thwart further declines and hopefully prevent federal listing through the environmental review process. Tricolored bat was recently petitioned to be protected under the U.S. Endangered Species Act with a 90-day finding of warranted. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will evaluate all information as part of this status review process. State listing of the northern long-eared bat follows federal listing in 2016 by regulation. Declines in the little brown bat and tricolored bat are more severe in Pennsylvania than that of the long-eared bat and therefore call for state listing. Protection of the few remaining populations of these bats is critical to their potential recovery. State listing triggers protections through environmental review and proactive measures to encourage recovery. Only recent occurrence sites will be regulated. The text shows on pages 4 and 5 of your agenda.
Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 8-0.
Commissioner, if I can add something to this, I just want to thank the board for the thoughtful consideration in moving this forward. This is a great step, so I very much appreciate it on behalf of myself and my staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item concerns proposed rulemaking to amend 58 PA Code, Section 139.4, relating to seasons and bag limits for the license year, to provide updated seasons and bag limits for the 2019-2020 license year. The 2019-2020 seasons and bag limits have been amended to reflect current available scientific data, population and harvest records, field surveys, and professional staff observations, as well as recommendations received from staff, organized sporting groups, members of the agricultural community, and others interested in the management of the wildlife resources of this Commonwealth. To provide an overall increase in black bear hunting opportunity and harvest, and to better align open seasons with dates when agricultural producers are experiencing bear damage, staff are proposing shifting the archery bear season to mid-October and expanding the October muzzleloader and special firearms seasons, previously limited to WMUs on the periphery of the bear range, statewide. Also, to increase bear harvest and reduce regulations complexity, the length of extended firearms bear seasons is proposed to increase from 4 to 6 days in several WMUs. For elk, addition of a September archery season and a January antlerless season are proposed to address hunter crowding issues during the regular season while simultaneously reducing elk habituation for humans in residential areas, and improving the agency's ability to respond to elk-human conflicts and to potential future CWD infection. Expansions of bobcat hunting and trapping opportunity to WMU 4B and a fisher trapping opportunity to WMU 4A are recommended in light of population indices in these units that are comparable to those in other WMUs where harvest is occurring sustainably. For beaver, an increase in the season bag limit from 20 to 40 is recommended for WMUs 2A and 2B in response to increasing nuisance complaints in these units. For porcupine, a reduction in season length is proposed to ensure population sustainability, given significant uncertainty about the impacts of harvest on this species. To increase hunting opportunities for younger deer hunters, a Saturday opener for rifle deer season is being proposed. Changing the historic opening day from the Monday following Thanksgiving to the Saturday following Thanksgiving represents a significant change in tradition. However, retaining our younger hunters is important to preserving our hunting heritage. By shifting the opening day to a Saturday, this change will create more hunting opportunity by selecting a day which better fits the working and school schedule of youth and young adults. Minor changes are also proposed for small game and turkey hunting season closing dates to accommodate the one-day shift in the opening of deer rifle season. The text is shown on pages 7 through 14 of your agenda.
Do we have a motion to accept the full proposed rulemaking?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
This is one of those situations where we'll go page by page. If we have discussions or any questions, we can go off of the page that we're on. So let's start with page 7. Any questions, any comments? Hearing none, page 8. We have a motion and a second on the floor to, and let me just see if I understand. The motion is to change the season, which is currently listed from October 19th to October 26th, and make it October 28th to November 9th. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? The secretary, would you call for the vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes take it 8-0.
Any other conversation? Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Any other discussion, any further discussion on seasons and bag limits? So we have a motion on the floor to accept the amended proposed seasons and bag limits. Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 8-0.
The next item comes from the Bureau of Wildlife Protection. It concerns adopted rulemaking to amend 58 PA Code, Section 135.103, relating to registration for controlled goose hunting areas, to authorize persons who possess a senior lifetime resident hunting license or senior lifetime resident combination hunting license, and who can provide documentation evidencing their eligibility for the resident disabled veteran license or a reduced fee resident disabled veteran license to apply to participate in the Veterans with Disabilities Only Day. The text of this change is shown on page 16 of your agenda.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 8-0. Passed.
The next item before the commission today is an amendment to 58 PA Code, sections 147.802 through 147.804, relating to definitions, application in general, to 1, expand the mentored youth program to include youth up to 16 years of age. 2, expand the mentored adult program to include persons 17 years of age or older. 3, limit participation in the mentored junior and mentored adult programs to 3 years total. And 4, set mentored junior permit fees at $5 for resident applicants and $40 for non-resident applicants, plus any applicable transactional and issuing agent fees. The text is shown on pages 18 through 19 of your agenda.
Do we have a motion to accept? Second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I have one comment. I think that this was a great move on the part of our board, because what it does is it closes what we kind of consider a donut hole. So if somebody wanted to test drive hunting, you know, they could do it as a mentored youth. They could do it as a mentored adult, and there was a middle part where they couldn't test drive, so to speak. This closes that hole. Good thing.
Thank you. Any other comments? Randy,
No, I
anything from
agree.
you?
It's a good move to close that loophole and give some kids who may not have parents that hunt to have that opportunity to get out and like Commissioner Daly said, give it a test drive. Good idea.
Thank you. Any other comments? Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 8-0.
The next item concerns proposed rulemaking to amend 58 PA Code, Section 141.4. The Commission is proposing to amend Section 141.4 to replace the current hunting hours table and migratory bird hunting hours table to accurately reflect the dates and hours of legal hunting for the 2019 through 2020 hunting trapping license year. The text is below on page 20 and on pages 21 and 22.
Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comment? Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed, 8-0.
The next item is to amend 58 PA Code, Section 141.20. Requirements for the wearing of fluorescent orange protective material within Pennsylvania are complex and make up a significant number of violations detected each year by state game wardens. On a national scale, the requirements for fluorescent orange protective material varies from state to state. Those regulations include 11 states, such as Texas and New York, which do not require any fluorescent orange protective material to be worn. 10 states only requiring it to be worn while hunting big game, 20 states only requiring it to be worn when hunting big game with a firearm, and 9 states, including Pennsylvania, having a mixture of instances in which it is required. The Commission is proposing to amend Section 141.20 relating to protective material required to reduce the requirements for the wearing of fluorescent orange protective material. While representing a significant reduction to the current requirements for fluorescent orange protective material requirements, the proposed changes will still maintain Pennsylvania's position as one of the more restrictive states in the nation. The text is shown on page 23 through 25 of your agenda.
Do we have a motion to accept?
I move.
Second?
Second.
Any questions, any comments?
I'd like to move to amend. Just for discussion, I'd like to take .3, move about or relocate while wearing a hat, that language, and strike it. Second.
So we have a motion on the floor to amend the regulation and strike the words, again, I'm just trying to verify, strike the words, move about or relocate while wearing a hat containing a minimum of 100 square inches of solid daylight fluorescent orange-colored material on the head and only be stationary without wearing the required orange-colored material.
Correct, with discussion with the heavy emphasis on we highly recommend.
So we have a motion on the floor with a second.
I added that says during all fall turkey seasons. During all turkey season.
So we're striking during all fall turkey seasons, is that part of your motion?
That's not what's in my publication.
Where are you seeing that? I'm sorry.
You said it was item 3. Item 3 does not say what season.
Right,
Immediate-
letter
immediate
I
below
says
that.
during all fall turkey season.
During all fall turkey season.
Oh, correct, it does, I see that. I'll amend to strike that as well.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor to amend the fluorescent orange. Mr. Secretary?
All in favor?
Aye. Did we have a discussion? You have to ask for a discussion.
My apologies. We have a motion, we have a second. Discussion, please.
Well, if no one else will, I certainly will. You know, it's kind of funny when you look at anything you do, they're safety related, whether it's, you know, daylight, running lights on a car, whatever, you try to prevent incidents when you can. When I look at taking away fluorescent orange for turkey hunting, currently, in almost the entire state, you need 250 square inches while you're moving, and you need at least a band around a tree when you're stationary. But why is turkey different? Well, turkey's different because I sit there and I actually make turkey sounds with turkey calls. So in many ways, I'm imitating the game animal that I'm trying to pursue. The other thing is, while I'm imitating that game animal, I may be working a box call. So now I've added movement to that. That's what adds danger. That's why turkey is different. It's why we've always had fluorescent orange requirements for turkey. That's why I strongly disagree with the proposed change to this regulation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? Hearing none now, Mr. Secretary, you call the vote for the amendment?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
7-1.
So we just voted on the amendment, so now we have to vote on the proposal as it was amended. So, Mr. Secretary, will you call that vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 7-1.
The next item comes from the Bureau of Wildlife Habitat Management. It concerns a donation of real estate. Contract number L3736, State Game Land number 148 in Lawrence County. The estate of Mary Joan Pavlich is offering to donate 513 more or less acres of land in Taylor and Shenango Townships, Lawrence County. The property is located approximately 4.6 miles north of existing State Game Land number 148, as shown on Exhibit Red 1 on page 28 of your agenda. The oil, gas, and minerals have been bequeathed to other entities. The Game Commission will be responsible to pay any outstanding unpaid property taxes and most likely will need to pay some inheritance tax on the property. Approximately 330 acres of the property is in mixed northern hardwoods, interspersed with 182 acres in shrubland and reverting old fields, plus a 1-acre pond creating a diversity of transitional habitats. McKee Run and 2 unnamed tributaries traverse the property. Access is via multiple public roadways including SR 168, West Pittsburgh Road, SR 2001, Savannah Road, SR 2012, Union Valley Road, and T 429, Denny Drive.
Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comments? Hearing none. Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 8-0.
The next item concerns contract L 3737, State Game Land Number 43 in Chester County. Natural Lands Trust, Inc., or Natural Lands, is offering to donate 28 more or less acres of land in West Nantmeal Township, Chester County, adjoining State Game Land Number 43 as shown on Exhibit Red 2 on page 30 of your agenda. Natural Lands was successful in securing funding through numerous partnership grants provided by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, the Highlands Conservation Act administered through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Chester County, the Open Space Institute, and the William Penn Foundation. Covenants, conditions, and restrictions associated with the different funding sources will be required to accept the property. The tract has 18 acres of red oak mixed hardwoods with 7 acres in agricultural fields. An unnamed tributary to South Branch French Creek flows through the property. The property lies within an important bird area referenced as the Hay Creek French Creek Forest Block, and a federally listed endangered species is within close proximity. Access is from SR 23, locally known as Ridge Road.
You have a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comments, any questions?
Mr. President, if I may just add. So looking at this donation, I've got to give a lot of credit to Jack Steffrud from the Natural Land Trust, but also all those partners that are involved in the acquisition and the funding of such. And when you look at this donation and the previous donation, it really is a testimony to how people feel about the agency and the trust that they place in us to make sure that we're creating and maintaining wildlife habitat in perpetuity. The previous one was a 500-acre donation from the Pavlich Estate. You just have to think that maybe there was a connection at some point in time to the state agency, probably locally, maybe interaction with a local game warden or somebody that led them down the path that it would be a great idea to bequeath that property to the agency. And this, with the trust built between the region in the southeast and Dennis Neidig of the real estate division, it was I mean, to bring us down there and to show us this property in the heart of the southeast, and then to put enough funding together to acquire it without us having to put anything into it was really tremendous on their part. So I just want to give kudos to them and their staff.
Well, thanks, Pete. Any other comments?
Pete, you know, I contacted you, I was at the Lawrence County Conservation Council. They represent like 2,000 sportsmen. They're very appreciative of this 513 acres, as you know.
Oh, great.
Thank
Great.
you for your efforts.
Any other comments? Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 8-0.
The next item concerns an acquisition, contract number L 3738, State Game Land Number 122 in Crawford County. Theodore J. and Pamela L. Weaver are offering 55 more or less acres of land in Steuben Township, Crawford County, an indenture into State Game Land Number 122, as shown on Exhibit Red 3 on page 32 of your agenda. The option price is $134,000 lump sum to be paid with funds from third-party commitments for compensation of habitat and recreational losses which occurred on state game lands from previously approved projects. Property is mostly mixed hardwood forest with black cherry and maple dominant. Marsh Run bisects the property. Access is from existing state game land number 122.
Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comments? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the vote.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed, 8-0.
The next item concerns contract number L3739, State Game Land number 277 in Crawford County. Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, or WPC, is offering 91.41 more or less acres of land in Cambridge Township, Crawford County, adjoining State Game Land number 277, referenced to as the Halliday Tract, as shown on Exhibit Red 4 on page 34 of your agenda. The option price is $400 per acre plus $27,512.11 from the estate of Margaret Metcalf, totaling $64,076.11. The funding is currently being held by WPC. At the June 28, 2011 Commission meeting, the Board approved Contract L3586, comprising 195 more or less acres of land in Cool Spring Township, Mercer County, adjoining State Game Land number 294, offered by the WPC for $90,000. Included in the $90,000 was $27,512.11 from the estate of Margaret Metcalf, which was bequeathed to the Game Commission for the exclusive purpose to acquire public hunting lands. WPC was unsuccessful in acquiring the 195 more or less acres associated with L3586 and has held the funds until suitable replacement lands became available. Therefore, WPC will apply $64,076.11 of the original $90,000 toward the cost of acquiring the Halliday Tract, leaving a remaining balance of $25,923.89 for future land acquisition. To cover the difference between the appraised value for the Halliday Tract and the Game Commission's $64,076.11 applied to its purchase, WPC utilized a special funding source designated to acquire natural areas. WPC also partnered with Ducks Unlimited to apply for grant funding through the North American Wetlands Conservation Act. Due to this special funding source, the following restrictive covenants will be placed on the property to be held and be held by WPC. 1. No timber harvesting or tree cutting unless 1. Approved by WPC, or 2. For habitat management for native species. 2. Unless it is done with native species, no farm crops or food plots shall be conducted or permitted on the property. 3. The creation of impoundments is prohibited. 4. No depositing, dumping, or abandoning of any solid waste, rubbish, debris, or liquid waste or effluent shall occur on the property. 5. Except for parking and reasonable access improvements, no building, structure, or facility of a permanent nature shall be constructed or installed on the property. 6. Except for invasive species control, the use of herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, fertilizers, and other agents are prohibited unless approved by WPC. 7. WPC will have the right to enter and inspect the property for compliance with the requirements of these restrictive covenants upon reasonable notice, in a reasonable manner, and at reasonable times. The property is mostly flat with hardwood forest, reverting old fields, and wetlands associated with floodplain habitat. French Creek borders the southern boundary, and several tributaries to French Creek flow through the property. Access is from US 6 and 19, known as Perry Highway, and SR 1016, known as Miller Station Road.
Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any comments?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
due to my association with WPC, I'll need to abstain
Thank you,
on this
Commissioner.
issue. Please let the record show, Mr. Secretary.
So Pete, if I may, there are a lot of restrictions on this property. You want to talk a little bit about how that's going to affect management and positively or negatively?
Sure, and through conversation with WPC and staff both at the regional and the Harrisburg level, we came up with everybody being okay with what we see here. Pretty much what you see here is how we manage all of our state game lands. So there's really no change from how we would normally take care of any of our state land.
Okay, very good. Any other questions, comments?
Pete, the only thing that I didn't see in their restrictions, so I assume it's allowed, would be prescribed fire. That's okay under this?
That is correct. These are the restrictions.
Okay,
So they're very livable.
thank you.
Any others? Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. 7 ayes, 1 abstain.
The next item is contract number L3740, State Game Land number 282, Warren County. The estate of Ruth M. Horner is offering 56 more or less acres of land in Pine Grove Township, Warren County, adjoining State Game Land number 282, as shown on Exhibit Red 5 on page 36 of your agenda. The option price is $53,000 lump sum to be paid with funds from third-party commitments for compensation of habitat and recreational losses which occurred on state game lands from previously approved projects. Approximately 46 acres are in reverting old fields, with the remaining 10 acres in mixed hardwoods. Some apple trees and 3 varieties of special concern plant species are located on the tract. The property is located within the Akeley Swamp Important Bird Area. Access is from Akeley Road.
Motion to accept.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comment? Questions?
Mr. President, if I just may add. So the northern border of this property is in New York State, actually, and this access point will provide greater access to the northern portion of the game lands. And also in the center of your photograph there, you'll see like a seasonal ephemeral wetland. So that adds a lot of value to the habitat that we're protecting up in that corner of the state. I just wanted to add that because it wasn't clear.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Pete, you know, many of these have been in the Northwest, so I want to thank you for that, first of all. Second, because the Northwest, I mean, we have game lands, but we don't have the big tracts like in the North Central. Any of these additions, especially many of them are in important bird areas and those things.
Sure.
Very much appreciated, thanks.
Any other comments? Mr. Secretary, call the roll.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 8-0.
The next item is contract number L3741, State Game Land number 42, Cambria County. Brookville Wood Products Incorporated is offering 2,166 more or less acres of land in Lower Yoder and Upper Yoder Townships, Cambria County, adjoining State Game Land number 42, as shown on Exhibit Red 6 on page 38 of your agenda. The option price is $1,650,000 lump sum to be paid with funds from third-party commitments for compensation of habitat and recreational losses which occurred on state game lands from previously approved projects. Northern hardwood forest dominates the moderately steep mountain slope, with numerous small forest openings associated with old log landings scattered over the property. Witch hazel, serviceberry, and hornbeam are present in the understory. Headwaters of Mill Creek and Little Mill Creek flow down the side slopes. The Western Pennsylvania Conservancy holds a pre-existing conservation easement on most of the acres, which limits development, surface mining, outdoor advertising, disposal of solid and liquid wastes, and certain types of forest management. Access is from SR 271 Menaher Highway.
Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Comment?
Mr. President, I'll need to abstain from this one, too.
Thank you, Commissioner. I know there was a lot of work that went into this. Dennis Knighting did a lot of the lead work. We certainly appreciate what he did, and everybody in your bureau, the hard work that they put into this. In the region worked hard for this too. So that's a good job by everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we go back to yesterday and we remember what Lisa Williams spoke of with rough grouse and those high elevation areas, those wooded areas, and management in those areas, hoping to kind of disconnect the West Nile virus from rough grouse in some of those areas due to the elevation. This ties perfectly into that in the Southwest region. And the other part of this acquisition is there's some additional funding that has come to the agency through various grant programs, so that we're targeting a lot of effort, both commercial and non-commercial work, in and around this area in support of grouse and other species.
Thanks, Pete. Any other comments? Okay, Mr. Secretary, call the roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-1 abstain.
The next item concerns contract number L3742, State Game Land number 59 in Potter County. Kenneth R. Comstock Jr. and Janice G. Comstock are offering a road right-of-way 33 feet wide by 4,752 feet in length, located across their property in Pleasant Valley Township, Potter County, for access into a detached parcel of State Game Land Number 59, as shown on Exhibit Red 7 on page 40 of your agenda. The option price is $14,390 lump sum to be paid with funds from third-party commitments for compensation of habitat and recreational losses, which occurred on state game lands from previously approved projects. The Game Commission currently has an existing road right-of-way granted by the Comstocks by a prior deed that was never developed and will be abandoned by the Game Commission as part of this agreement. The new right-of-way is a fully developed gravel roadway, and by acquiring it, the Game Commission will avoid the cost and significant environmental disturbance of developing a new road where none currently exists. The new right-of-way will improve access into State Game Land Number 59 from SR 4001, Sarkwell Creek Road. The right-of-way will be for administrative purposes only, and the Comstocks reserve the right to use the right-of-way.
Do we have a motion to accept? So moved. Second? Any comments?
Just a question. Pete, this looks like it's a pretty improved roadway, is that right? Gravel and everything that you're gonna get. My question, I guess, is because it does provide this access into State Game Lands 59, would it be worth trying to get approval to not only use it for administrative purposes, but for handicap access? Because it seems like it's already a good road that would support that kind of an activity.
Right, when discussions took place with the Comstocks, Dave Gustafson was actually part of that negotiation, and they were very willing to allow us access for administrative purposes. However, they did not want full-blown public access, whether it was for disabled or otherwise. So they wanted to limit it to administrative use.
Okay. We just need to look for those things going forward.
Sure, absolutely.
Any other comments? Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. 3-0.
And the next item before the Commission concerns contract number L3743, State Game Land Number 224 in Luzerne County. Linda Gale Johnson is offering 99 more or less acres of land in Union and Hunlock Townships, Luzerne County, adjoining State Game Land Number 224, as shown on Exhibit Red 8 on page 42 of your agenda. The option price is $400 per acre to be paid with funds from the Game Fund. The property is mostly forested with mixed hardwoods on a steep south-facing slope with rock outcroppings along the ridge. There are 2 acres of forest openings and 2 acres of shrubland located on the tract. The property lies within important mammal area number 29, Wyoming Valley, created for critical need bat habitat. Access is from existing State Game Land Number 224.
Motion to accept.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions, any comments? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed, 8-0.
The next item concerns an amendment to non-surface use oil and gas cooperative agreement tract 223A-18, State Game Land Number 223 in Greene County. Greylock Production LLC, or Greylock, requested that the Commission offer its oil and gas rights under a 23.6398 more or less acre tract, which the Commission owns 75% of the oil and gas rights, but does not own the surface. The proposed tract consists of 17.729 net oil and gas acres and will be amended to the tract 223A18 agreement consisting of approximately 724 more or less surface acres, 537.61 more or less oil and gas acres, located in Whiteley Township, Greene County, as shown on Exhibit OGM-1 on page 44 of your agenda. The total oil or gas acres for this agreement will then be 561.2498 more or less acres. Greylock has a strong oil-gas lease position surrounding this portion of State Game Land Number 223. Greylock has initiated unconventional well drilling and development in the vicinity of the proposed tract and has the ability to unitize and develop the Commission's oil and gas reserves under the proposed tract by horizontal drilling with no surface use or disturbance to the current owners. The OGM staff has negotiated the proposed terms of the agreement with Greylock to prudently develop the Commission's oil and gas reserves and simultaneously protect the wildlife resources and recreational use of State Game Land Number 223. The terms of the agreement are a 5-year non-surface use oil and gas agreement, a $4,000 per net oil and gas acre bonus payment, and 18% royalty for all oil, gas, and other liquids or condensates produced and sold from the proposed tract. The bonus payment of approximately $70,916 may be deposited either into the game fund or into an interest-bearing escrow account to be used for the future purchase of wildlife habitats, lands, or other uses incidental to hunting, fur taking, and wildlife resource management. Future rentals and royalties owed the Commission shall be deposited directly into the game fund. Oil and gas development will be regulated by the Commonwealth's oil and gas regulations and the Commission's standard non-surface use oil and gas cooperative agreement.
Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 8-0.
Mr. Daly, would you care to introduce the resolution that we're about to propose? We have Attorney Bechtel will read it, if you'll just.
Yeah, sure. So on, let's see, I guess that would have been Sunday, we had one of our officers who was representing an FOP stance. So the way our current retirement system is set up, it doesn't match any of the other law enforcement agencies and personnel within, and it's everything from, dog wardens to fish and boat and whatever. We just want to extend that to cover our officers as well, because it allows them to retire at an age and, without being penalized. That's what it's for.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Bechtel, would you read the resolution, please?
The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania Game Commission, Resolution of the Board of Commissioners. Whereas the State Employees Retirement Code, 71 PACS Section 5101 et sec, governs the administration and operation of the Pennsylvania State Employees Retirement System, one of the nation's oldest and largest statewide retirement plans for public employees. And whereas Section 5102 of the State Employees Retirement Code, 71 PACS Section 5102 relating to definitions, defines the terms superannuation age, state police officer, correction officer, and enforcement officer in a manner to allow certain types of Commonwealth law enforcement personnel to retire at ages 50 or 55, whichever may be applicable after 20 years of service, rather than the default at age 60 or after 35 years of service. And whereas the types of Commonwealth law enforcement personnel eligible for the early retirement allowances includes any member of the Pennsylvania State Police, correction officers employed by the Department of Corrections or the Department of Human Services, formerly the Department of Public Welfare, Delaware River Port Authority policemen, park rangers employed by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Capitol Police officers, certain officers and investigators of the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, certain agents and employees of the Office of Attorney General, certain agents of the Pennsylvania Board of Probation and Parole, and also waterways conservation officers and other commissioned law enforcement personnel employed by the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. And whereas the types of Commonwealth law enforcement personnel eligible for the early retirement allowances does not currently include game wardens and other commissioned law enforcement personnel employed by the Pennsylvania Game Commission. And whereas since 2000, both houses of the General Assembly have together introduced no less than 17 legislative bills aimed at amending the definition of enforcement officer to include game wardens, game commission officers, and other commissioned law enforcement personnel employed by the Pennsylvania Game Commission to bring these officers in parity with the other forms of law enforcement officers employed by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania on matters related to retirement. And whereas despite steadfast and widespread support for parity, such legislation has not yet received successful passage into law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the Pennsylvania Game Commission does hereby support the General Assembly in giving further consideration of this matter through its future introduction of legislation aimed at amending the definition of enforcement officer in Section 5102 of the State Employees Retirement Code to include game wardens, game commission officers, and other commissioned law enforcement personnel employed by the Pennsylvania Game Commission, given under the hand and seal of the Board of Commissioners of the Pennsylvania Game Commission on this 29th day of January 2019.
Commissioner Daley would like to make a motion to accept the resolution.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Any comments from the commissioners?
Well, this really does address parity for our officers. As you said, it's been 17 different times that this has come forward. We need to make it happen. We need to put some, get this to the legislature, see if they can make it happen soon.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ayes have it, 8-0.
Commissioners, make sure you sign the resolution before you leave today, please. Any other new business?
Yes, Mr. President. I would like to ask the staff to prepare language to allow for the use of semi-automatic rifles during the big game season. This follows the addition of the semi-automatic shotguns during the 2018-19 season without incident.
Second.
We don't need to move on that, but no.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hoover. Any other new business? So at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Commissioner Hoover, who is asked to be the chairman of the nominations committee for the election of officer.
I appreciate the opportunity. I have spoken with all of the commissioners to come up with a slate of candidates for this year. And from that conversation, Tim Layton for president, Jim Daly for vice president, and Stan Kinnick for secretary. Are there any other nominations from the board at this time? Being that there are no other nominations, then there is no need for a vote. And the new candidates the new officers will remain as the slate that is currently in effect.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoover. The next working group meetings, we'll have to get out to everybody. They're upstairs in the office. The commission meeting's the same. There will be an executive session immediately following the press conference. If there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned.